Every single day you die at least 7 times. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but in very real ways according to Tibetan Buddhist understanding of consciousness and impermanence. Most people experience only one of these deaths consciously, the transition into sleep. And even that one usually happens without awareness. But Tibetan Buddhist masters have mapped 7 distinct dissolution experiences that occur in every 24-hour cycle, 7 opportunities to practice dying, 7 rehearsals for the final death that prepares you to navigate it consciously. Understanding these 7 daily deaths transforms ordinary life into continuous spiritual practice, revealing that impermanence isn't just philosophical theory but lived reality. You experience moment by moment. If you're ready to discover the 7 times you die each day and how recognizing them can liberate you from fear while making every moment precious, subscribe to this channel right now and activate all notifications, because this teaching will forever change how you experience the simple act of being alive. The teaching of 7 daily deaths comes from the Tibetan Buddhist understanding that death isn't a single event that happens once at the end of life. Death is a process that repeats constantly at multiple scales simultaneously. At the grossest level, your physical body is dying and being reborn continuously. Cells die by the millions every day, replaced by new cells. The atoms and molecules that compose your body are constantly exchanging with the environment through breathing, eating, and metabolic processes. The body you inhabit today is materially different from the body you inhabited 7 years ago, with virtually every cell replaced. At the subtler level of consciousness, your mental states are arising and passing away thousands of times per day. Each thought is born, exists briefly, and dies, replaced by the next thought. Emotions emerge from nothing, intensify, and dissolve back into nothing. Your sense of self is reconstructed moment by moment, each moment a new birth and death of identity. At the subtlest level, the fundamental nature of awareness itself doesn't die because it was never born. But the manifestations and modifications of that awareness die constantly. Understanding these 7 daily deaths means recognizing that you are not a thing that persists through time, but a process of continuous dying and rebirth. The first daily death is the most obvious yet least recognized consciously, the death that occurs when you fall asleep. We explored this in depth previously, but it bears repeating in this context. When you fall asleep, the waking self dies. The person you've been all day, with all your concerns, plans, memories, and identity, dissolves completely. Consciousness withdraws from the physical senses in a specific sequence that mirrors the dying process. First, your sense of being a body in a specific location fades. You stop feeling the pressure of the mattress, the temperature of the room, the position of your limbs. Then your awareness of external sounds and sensations drops away. You're no longer processing environmental stimuli even though those stimuli continue. Your visual field, even with eyes closed, dims and disappears. At a certain point, there's a gap, a moment of complete dissolution where waking consciousness ceases entirely. This is the moment of falling asleep, and it's functionally identical to the moment of death when consciousness separates from the body. After this gap, a new world appears. The dream world. You're reborn in a new body, the dream body, in a new environment that seems real while you're in it. This death and rebirth happens every single night, yet most people remain completely unconscious through the transition. They remember lying in bed trying to sleep. Then there's nothing. Then they're waking up or finding themselves in a dream with no memory of the transition. The opportunity is lost. But practitioners who train to remain aware through this transition are practicing conscious dying, developing the exact capacity they'll need when the final death arrives. Share in the comments. Have you ever remained aware through the transition from waking to sleeping? The second daily death is the mirror image of the first, waking up. When you wake in the morning, the dream self dies. Whatever you were in the dream, whatever drama you were involved in, whatever body you inhabited, dissolves completely. The dream world, which seemed so real and solid while you were in it, is revealed to have been nothing but mental projection with no material existence. Every person you interacted with in the dream, every location you visited, every object you touched, was your own mind appearing as apparent externality. Upon waking, all of that dies instantly. The dream body dissolves. The dream environment vanishes. And a new self is born. The waking self that identifies with your physical body, that picks up the narrative of your life where you left it before sleep, that reassumes your roles, responsibilities, and identity. This rebirth happens so smoothly that you rarely notice the magnitude of the transition. One moment you're flying through impossible landscapes or having conversations with deceased relatives, and the next moment you're in bed, and the flying and the conversations are dismissed as mere dreams with no reality. But Tibetan Buddhism asks, how do you know your waking state isn't also a dream? The Buddha taught that all of samsaric existence is like a dream, appearing real while you're in it but revealed as empty construction upon awakening to enlightenment. Each morning when you wake, you're demonstrating the capacity for this awakening. You die to one world and awaken to another. This daily practice prepares you for the ultimate awakening, dying to samsara and awakening to nirvana. The third daily death occurs between emotional states. Your emotional life is not stable or continuous. Emotions arise, intensify, peak, fade, and disappear, replaced by different emotions or neutral states. When you're angry, the anger feels solid and permanent while it's present. Your entire being is colored by anger. Your thoughts, perceptions, and bodily sensations are all filtered through the anger. You cannot imagine not being angry. But then something shifts. The anger dissipates, fades, and dies. In its place, perhaps calm arises, or sadness, or contentment. The person you were while angry has died, replaced by a person in a different emotional state. Tibetan Buddhism recognizes that your identity is largely constructed by your emotional states. When you're angry, you're a different person than when you're compassionate. The angry you makes different choices, says different things, perceives situations differently. When that anger dies, the angry you dies with it. This death and rebirth of emotional selves happens multiple times daily. You wake up anxious, then the anxiety dies and contentment arises. The contentment dies and irritation emerges. Irritation dies and joy appears. Each transition is a small death. Yet you don't notice because you maintain the fiction of being a continuous self that has emotions rather than recognizing that you are temporarily constituted by those emotions. Advanced practitioners train to remain aware during these emotional transitions, noticing the gap between one emotion dying and the next arising. In that gap, there's a moment of pure awareness unconditioned by emotional content. This is a taste of your fundamental nature, the awareness that witnesses all emotions but isn't defined by any of them. The fourth daily death happens with the cessation of each thought. Your mental life consists of an apparently continuous stream of thoughts, but careful observation reveals that thoughts are discrete events with gaps between them. A thought arises, exists briefly, and dies. There's a gap, usually unnoticed, before the next thought arises. In that gap, you exist without thought, without narrative, without the mental commentary that usually defines your experience. Most people never notice these gaps because the next thought arises so quickly that consciousness seems continuous. But meditation practice specifically trains you to notice and rest in these gaps. When one thought ends and before the next begins, what are you? You exist, you're conscious, but there's no content to consciousness. This is similar to the clear light experiences described in advanced practices. The death of thoughts, if recognized, reveals the nature of mind itself, the basic awareness that doesn't depend on having thoughts. Each thought death is an opportunity for liberation, an opportunity to recognize that you are not your thoughts but the awareness in which thoughts appear. Tibetan masters sometimes achieve enlightenment by recognizing the gap between thoughts, seeing directly that the awareness present in the gap is their true nature, always present, usually obscured by the constant production of mental content. If this teaching is revealing the impermanence you experience constantly, please like this video to help others discover this wisdom. The fifth daily death occurs between breaths. Breathing seems continuous, but it's actually rhythmic. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause, inhale. In the pauses, breathing has died. You're not breathing. For a moment, there's cessation. The Buddha himself pointed to breath as a primary object for meditation, precisely because it demonstrates impermanence so clearly. Each breath is a complete cycle of birth, life, and death. The inhale arises from nothing, increases, reaches its peak, and begins to die. The exhale continues the dying process until the breath is completely released. Then there's a gap, a small death, before the next inhale is born. Your life depends on this cycle. Stop the cycle, and you die. Continue it, and you live. But each moment of the cycle includes death. The moment between exhale and inhale is especially significant in Tibetan practice. Some advanced practitioners achieve realization by maintaining awareness through that moment, recognizing that consciousness continues even when breathing has momentarily ceased. This directly demonstrates that consciousness is not dependent on breath in the way we ordinarily assume. It prepares practitioners for the ultimate breath death, when breathing stops permanently, and consciousness must navigate the transition without its usual anchor. The sixth daily death is the constant passing away of experience itself. Every sensation, every perception, every moment of awareness arises and immediately passes away, dying to make room for the next moment. You look at a beautiful sunset. The moment you see it, it's already gone, replaced by the next moment's perception, which is slightly different. You hear a sound. By the time you've identified it, it's died, replaced by the next sound or silence. You feel a sensation in your body. Before you can fully attend to it, it's changed, transformed, already becoming something else or disappearing entirely. This teaching of momentariness is central to Buddhist philosophy. Nothing stays. Nothing persists for even 2 consecutive moments. Everything is dying constantly, instantly, completely. Your failure to notice this constant death creates suffering because you try to hold on to what's already gone. You try to make permanent what is inherently impermanent. You grasp at experiences that are already dead by the time your grasping reaches for them. Recognizing the constant death of experience doesn't make you nihilistic or depressed. It makes you present. When you know that this moment is dying even as you experience it, you stop postponing attention. You stop treating now as a stepping stone to some future moment when you'll finally be present. You're present now because now is all there is, constantly dying and being reborn as the next now. The 7th daily death is perhaps the subtlest, the death of identity itself, moment by moment. Who you are is not stable. The self you reference when you say I is reconstructed continuously based on memory, present circumstances, and future projections. But none of these are stable. Your memories are being revised constantly, changed by subsequent experiences and present interpretations. Your present circumstances shift continuously. Your future projections change with each new moment. The self built from these unstable components cannot itself be stable, yet you maintain the fiction of continuous identity. You believe you're the same person who woke up this morning, who went to sleep last night, who was born decades ago. But Tibetan Buddhism's teaching of Anatman or no self challenges this. The person you were this morning has died, replaced by the person you are now. The person reading these words will die by the end of this sentence, replaced by a slightly different person reading the next sentence. Each moment of self is a fresh construction, similar to but not identical with the previous moment's construction. This is why Buddha taught that there's no permanent self, no unchanging essence that travels through time. There's only a succession of momentary selves, each arising in dependence on the previous but none of them lasting. Recognizing this daily, moment-by-moment death of identity is liberating because you realize you're not bound by past selves. The person who made mistakes yesterday has died. You can be different now because you literally are someone different, causally connected to, but not identical with yesterday's self. These 7 daily deaths reveal a profound truth. Impermanence is not something that happens to you occasionally. Impermanence is what you are. You are a process of dying and being reborn continuously at multiple levels simultaneously. Your cells die and regenerate. Your emotions arise and pass. Your thoughts appear and disappear. Your breath cycles through death and rebirth. Your experiences flash into and out of existence. Your sense of self reconstructs itself moment by moment. And every night you die completely in sleep and are reborn in dreams or waking. This isn't depressing information. This is liberating wisdom. The fear of death that lurks in the background of most people's consciousness stems from treating death as a foreign event, something alien that will happen once in the distant future. But death isn't alien. You're intimately familiar with death. You experience it constantly. You've already died thousands of times and survived every single death. The final physical death is just one more death, a bigger version of what you've been experiencing all along. Please share this video with someone who fears death or who wants to understand impermanence more deeply. Understanding the 7 daily deaths changes how you practice. Every transition becomes an opportunity. When you fall asleep tonight, instead of unconsciously dissolving into sleep, try to remain aware. Notice the dissolution of waking consciousness. When you wake tomorrow, instead of immediately jumping into planning mode, pause and notice the transition from sleep to waking. Recognize that a world has just died and a new world has been born. Throughout the day, notice emotional transitions. When anger begins to fade, watch it die. Notice the gap before the next emotion arises. When sitting quietly, notice the gaps between thoughts. Rest in those gaps. That's your true nature, always present, usually covered by mental activity. Notice your breath constantly cycling through death and rebirth. Feel the pause between breaths. Recognize that each moment of experience is already dying as it occurs. Nothing stays. Let go as quickly as things pass, and contemplate the moment-by-moment reconstruction of self. Who are you without the story of past and future? Who are you in this immediate moment, stripped of narrative identity? This practice transforms ordinary life into continuous spiritual training. You don't need to go to a monastery or sit in a cave. You don't need special conditions. You're already experiencing death constantly. You just need to recognize it. Each recognition is a small awakening. Each time you notice death happening and discover that awareness continues, you weaken the fear of death and strengthen the recognition of your deathless nature. This doesn't mean there's a permanent self that survives death. That would contradict the teaching of a Natman. Rather, it means the fundamental awareness that witnesses death is not itself touched by death. Waves arise and die on the ocean, but the ocean remains. Your individual manifestations arise and die constantly, but the basic nature of awareness that knows these manifestations doesn't die because it was never born. The 7 daily deaths also reveal why death meditation is so central to Tibetan practice. When you contemplate the certainty of death and uncertainty of its timing through formal meditation, you're not just thinking about some distant future event. You're recognizing what's already happening constantly. Death isn't coming eventually. Death is here now, happening continuously. This recognition transforms the death meditation from abstract contemplation to immediate experiential reality. You're not preparing for something foreign. You're recognizing something intimately familiar that you've been unconsciously experiencing your entire life. This recognition removes death's power to terrorize because familiarity dissolves fear. The unknown is frightening. The well-known is simply reality to be navigated skillfully. Tibetan Buddhism's graduated path uses these 7 daily deaths as training for the ultimate transition. Beginners are taught to contemplate death as distant event to generate renunciation and urgency for practice. Intermediate practitioners learn to recognize the death-like dissolutions they experience daily, especially in sleep. Advanced practitioners maintain awareness through these daily deaths, remaining conscious through sleep transitions, recognizing the gaps between thoughts and emotions, and resting in the awareness that persists through all changes. Highly advanced practitioners prepare for the ultimate death by achieving stable recognition of Rigpa, the primordial awareness that was never born and therefore cannot die. From this recognition, physical death becomes simply another transition, no more frightening than falling asleep because you've already navigated that transition thousands of times consciously. Contemporary neuroscience provides some validation for these teachings, though science works at a much grosser level than Tibetan Buddhism's subtle understanding. Brain imaging confirms that the brain undergoes massive state changes during sleep transitions, with different networks activating and deactivating. Studies of emotional processing show that emotional states involve distinct neural patterns that arise and pass away completely, supporting the teaching that emotional deaths are real neural events rather than mere subjective impressions. Research on the default mode network suggests that the continuous narrative self is indeed constructed moment by moment, rather than being a stable entity, confirming the teaching of moment-by-moment self-reconstruction. And studies of mindfulness meditation confirm that practitioners can learn to notice the gaps between thoughts and between breaths, developing meta-awareness that observes mental processes rather than being absorbed in them. What practical guidance emerges for modern practitioners? Begin by simply noticing. You don't need to do anything complex. Just notice the 7 deaths as they occur. Tonight when you're falling asleep, try to notice the exact moment when waking consciousness ends. You probably won't succeed immediately. That's fine. The intention alone begins to create the capacity. Tomorrow morning when you wake, pause before getting up. Notice that you've just been reborn from sleep into waking. Throughout tomorrow, notice once when an emotion completely changes. Just once. Notice the old emotion dying and the new one arising. At some point during the day, sit quietly for just 2 minutes and watch your thoughts. Try to notice the gap between 2 thoughts. Just once. Don't strain or force. Just watch and see if you can catch the moment between thoughts. Notice your breath a few times during the day. Feel the pause between exhale and inhale. And once or twice, recognize that the experience you're having right now is already dying, already passing away, will never come again in exactly this form. That's the practice. Simple noticing. Do this consistently, and your understanding of impermanence will shift from intellectual concept to lived reality. As understanding deepens, the practice naturally evolves. You begin noticing the deaths not just occasionally but continuously. This doesn't require effort once the recognition matures. It becomes natural to notice, the way you naturally notice sounds without trying. Death and rebirth are happening constantly, and you're simply aware of this reality. This continuous recognition produces what Buddhist texts call dispassion, not in the sense of being emotionless but in the sense of non-clinging. When you clearly see that everything dies immediately, you stop grasping. Not from forcing yourself not to grasp, but from recognizing the futility of grasping at what's already gone. And paradoxically, this non-grasping allows you to engage more fully. When you're not trying to hold on to experiences, you can be completely present for them while they occur. You can love without clinging. You can enjoy without grasping. You can experience fully while knowing the experience is already dying. This is the freedom that comes from recognizing the 7 daily deaths. The teaching culminates in recognizing that awareness itself, the knowing that witnesses all these deaths, is deathless not because it persists forever, but because it exists outside the framework of birth and death entirely. The 7 deaths happen within awareness, but don't affect awareness itself. When a thought dies, awareness remains. When an emotion dies, awareness remains. When you fall asleep, awareness transforms but doesn't cease. When you wake up, awareness was there all along. This awareness, called Rigpa in Dzogchen terminology or Buddha nature in Mahayana, is your deepest nature. It's not something you need to create or acquire. You only need to recognize what's already always present. The 7 daily deaths serve as constant reminders and opportunities for this recognition. Each death points to that which doesn't die. Each impermanent phenomenon reveals by contrast the unchanging awareness that knows impermanence. We've explored Tibetan Buddhism's teaching of 7 daily deaths. The death of falling asleep, the death of waking up, the death between emotional states, the death of thoughts, the death between breaths, the death of each moment of experience, and the moment-by-moment death of identity itself. These aren't metaphorical deaths but real dissolutions that mirror and rehearse the final physical death. Recognizing these daily deaths transforms impermanence from abstract philosophy to immediate experience. It removes death's power to terrorize by revealing death as intimately familiar. It makes every moment precious by showing that every moment is already dying, and it points toward the deathless awareness that witnesses all deaths but is not touched by any of them. This teaching invites you to stop postponing awareness of impermanence until some future crisis forces it on you. The 7 deaths are happening right now. Wake up to them. Each recognition is a small liberation. Each moment of clear seeing weakens the illusion of permanence and strengthens the recognition of your true nature. What will you notice first? Which of the 7 deaths can you commit to recognizing today? Share your intention in the comments and hold yourself accountable. If this teaching has revealed the impermanence you're living constantly, subscribe to this channel for more Tibetan Buddhist wisdom that transforms ancient teachings into immediate practice. Share this with anyone who fears death, anyone trapped in illusions of permanence, anyone ready to wake up to the reality of constant change. May you recognize the 7 daily deaths and through that recognition discover the deathless awareness that is your deepest nature. May all beings awaken to impermanence and through that awakening find freedom from suffering. The 7 deaths are happening now. Don't miss them. Each one is an invitation to liberation.